When I started exploring my narcissism, I thought I needed to heal or to fix myself. Turns out I was looking for instructions on how to turn a cat into a dog. Here's what I mean. So there's a lot of conversation out there about narcissists. Of course, if you're here, I'm sure you've watched a lot of videos or read some stuff or have interest. So you've certainly seen a lot of the concept that narcissists are broken, damaged, and even more so evil or have evil intentions and are purposely manipulating because they're just kind of bad people. And so this was a challenge at first when I learned about my narcissism because it's like, oh my God, I don't want to be one of those people once I was learning about it. And how do I fix it? How do I heal this disease, this disorder, this dysfunction? But through further investigation of what narcissism really is and really a lot of self-investigation, I came to the realization that to say that we want to heal our narcissism or fix it is implying that something is broken. And the truth is that nothing is really broken in me and with the way my brain works. Now, yes, there are a lot of ways that because of that, because of my narcissism, because of the way my brain works, that things don't work well in our culture or in our society in a lot of ways. It causes a lot of dysfunction and problem with relationships. There's some fantastical or magical thinking that happens, with narcissism. They can cause a lot of troubles with all kinds of stuff, financial trouble, business, and relationships also. But the key isn't really to heal those or get those to go away. The key that I've discovered is really to figure out what those things are, what those differences are, how they manifest in me, in my mind, also in my world around me, and then learn to work well with those differences rather than just trying to heal them. Because again, healing suggests some sort of dysfunction. And yes, the outplay of narcissism and NPD does cause dysfunction, but that's not because there's something fundamentally bad or broken or wrong with me. It's really because the way I operate, the way I learned to operate, the way my brain then formed is different enough from many people, the majority of people in our world, and that it causes a lot of discord because when you don't know that that's what's going on. So I gave a story in a different video, which I can put the link for here if you want to hear more about it. But the brief version of it is when I was a kid, I went to summer camp and there was a guy I knew there. His name was Roger. And I learned that he didn't have the sense of smell. Literally was born without the sense of smell. But what was interesting and why this story stuck with me all these years is because he didn't know that he couldn't smell. So for example, if a child is born blind, that becomes obvious pretty fast. When they're a baby still, people will start to realize that they aren't able to see things. That might show up as them bumping into things or not responding when you're making faces at them or whatever the case may be. Similarly with if they're born deaf, that is something that actually they test for, I believe, when babies are born in a lot of places. But if not even, it's something that would occur quickly, the realization that that's what was going on. Smell, on the other hand, is a bit different. And what Roger told me was that he didn't know that he couldn't smell until he was around 6, 7, 8 years old, somewhere in there. And I thought, wow, that's crazy. Like, how did you not know you couldn't smell? So I asked him more about it. He told me what happened was when people would say, here, smell this thing, or he would watch other people do the activity of smelling, put something up to their nose, breathe in, he would do the same thing. And he would have some sort of an experience, which you can imagine. Now, he wasn't actually smelling anything, but he had some sort of experience, or he learned to mirror what he saw other people do. So they would have a flower and then, oh, that smells so good. Here, Roger, smell that. And he would do the same function and he'd be like, oh, yeah, that smells good. And whatever experience he was having, though it wasn't smell, he would associate that's what something smelling good is. Or someone would say, oh, that smells terrible here. And he would, oh, yeah, that's bad. Similarly, he would have some sort of experience and then say, okay, that must be what they're talking about. I mean, this doesn't happen consciously when we're little kids, but unconsciously, that's what they're talking about. So that's what bad smell is. So it wasn't until he was like 6 or 7 or 8 when his brain started to develop a little more reasoning that it finally occurred to him that to him, flowers and rotten garbage smelled the same approximately. There was no big difference in the smells to him, where other people would have these big reactions. And so finally, it started to occur to him, okay, something's different is going on here. And then he discovered he had no sense of smell. I use that analogy or that example because that's really so applicable to my experience with narcissism. So it didn't happen when I was 6 or 7 or 8. It only happened in the last year and a half or 2 years from now. So I went through my whole life up until now, not knowing that I didn't smell the same as other people. In narcissist case, I didn't experience emotions the same as other people. I didn't have empathy the same as other people. But I watched other people doing that my whole life in all of their interactions with me and their interactions with each other. So I learned how to fake it really well. What this has to do with healing narcissism and what we're talking about is that for Roger to operate as effectively as he could, have a happy life and so forth, there was no healing of his lack of sense of smell. Maybe they're going to work on that with genetics. I don't know. But the point is, once he knew that's what was going on, then he could alter his life in ways that needed to be altered in order to go through life without that being in something that impedes him. Yeah, he can't be a whatever they call those people that are the wine experts. Probably limits his ability to be a chef because a lot of your sense of taste is through smell. But aside from those things that are very scent specific, he could go through his whole life without that sense of smell and function well. So similarly, as a narcissist, yeah, there are things that I am just not going to be good at, right? Things that require that empathy, require that emotional involvement, probably a broader range of things than the sense of smell, but similar to that. So it's really about learning to operate, learning to understand yourself. And that's no small task. Most of us narcissists don't discover our narcissism until we're adults. So we've had countless interactions and connections we built in our brain of how to fake it, how to operate in this world that expects empathy, expects emotional connection when we really just can't do it the same way. But what we really, once we've investigated ourselves and learned where that occurs for us, what are those micro interactions where this lack of authenticity, this faking it shows up, and then learn to turn that into practices of being real, being authentic, informing our world about the way we're different. And coming from that open mind is really what, quote unquote, healing narcissism is all about. It's not really about fixing some inherent problem we have in our brains and in the way we experience emotions. It's really about learning to understand ourselves well enough and be aware of our own differences well enough that we can then come out as the authentic person we are, even when it's not how other people expect it, because it's really not going to be. That's what I've learned about myself. When I was faking it, I could do a decent job, but the closer people were into me, the more interactions they had with me, the worse those faking it things worked. Because even if you fake it really well, that you're, having empathy or emotionally connecting with the person, they feel that there's something missing subtly often, but it's there. And so sometimes not so subtly. That ends up not working. And that piling up of those interactions often is what leads to the bigger dysfunction trail of, injury and pain that we leave in our wake as narcissists, because many of us are trying to operate in this world in a way that works. We just don't have the same faculties in the same way that normies do. So rather than looking at it as like fixing this narcissism or healing it per se, I think a better way to look at it is learning to understand ourselves well enough that we can start to operate with real authenticity, even when our authenticity looks very different than what the other people are expecting. As long as we do it with some care for ourselves and for them, then we can actually start to operate in our worlds in a much more authentic way. And why? Like, what the heck's the reason, right? Because as narcissists, our fundamental baseline that we operate from, our motivation, is what's in it for me. That could sound like a bad thing. It's not necessarily. But what's in it for me to learn to operate more authentically and to even be vulnerable, because that causes vulnerability? And what's in it for me, what I've discovered in this journey, is that the more I can do that, the happier I am with myself. The more I can be fully expressed in my world around me as the real, authentic me, the more freedom I feel to be me. Because real freedom, real personal freedom is, or one of the things about real personal freedom is the ability and the practice of really just being you, no matter what, even if that is something totally different than what the person who's talking to you expects or wants from you. The best thing you can give is that realness from yourself and that authenticity. So I would say that's actually the journey of healing or fixing narcissism. It's actually not too dissimilar to healing or fixing really any condition pattern that any of us get from our youth, in order to be more free and more available to ourselves in our world. Because that's where the real satisfaction in life comes from, is really expressing who you really are, who you truly are, underneath all of the layers of conditioning and so forth that we build up over time. So for the narcissists out there, keep in mind, you're not broken. The goal, as I see it, is to embrace your different operating system and find ways to thrive with it, not try to stamp it down and call it bad and get rid of it. All right. Make sure to subscribe, give a thumbs up or a like, drop some comments below. How does this strike you? Do you have questions? Have you tried this? Is there something you're struggling with this? What have you done that's really worked well? I'd love to interact with you guys in the comments, because I think that this is important. And I also think I don't have all the answers. I'm on this journey just like you are. And why don't we learn from each other along the way? All right. So that's all today from Awake Narcissists, where we're spreading the news that narcissists are